I'm here at Badderford Farm with Mandy Barber of Incredible Vegetables, and we've just been filming for my other channel that's like more dedicated to vegetable gardeners. But one of the things that kind of jumped out to me when looking about is the power of perennial vegetables and perennial crops outside of just a home garden setting, and that you said that you have market gardeners contacting you kind of thinking how do we integrate perennials within their setup. So what I'd like to hear is like what's been your experience on that and the interest, and why do you think that, because when you go to a lot of market gardens they have that very defined season of a veg box and it's all annuals really that are appearing, and so why aren't there more like perennials featuring in these veg boxes, and what do we need to do to change that?
I think there's definitely been more interest in the last couple of years from small scale growers and CSAs and things like that. I think the issue is that things have been done one way for such a long time. It's like, how do you crack that open and make it work?
And you may not even realise it.
Yeah.
Because if you're just doing that one thing.
And also things are very geared towards straight line growing plants of a certain size, that kind of thing. So when you're dealing with perennials, they can be a bit more unruly and misbehaving. And also you're dealing with going from maybe a till or minimum till system to like giving up quite a lot of your space for quite a few years. So that's another consideration. It's like, how does that fit in plan? And also that's the discussion that you have to have. It's like, how do you integrate it? Which bit of your land can you give over to perennials? And my answer to that is like, quite a lot of them don't need that cultivated bed. They can grow on the edges, they can grow in the shady places, they can grow in the sloping places.
Essentially the marginal.
Yeah, the marginal areas. Not not all of them, but some of them will grow in the spaces which wouldn't be suitable for your annual production. And then comes the question of like, are the customers going to want to eat it? How do you introduce new things to customers?
Like, what earth is this? But I suppose you get this with like a normal veg box scheme. People are like, what on earth do you do with a kohlrabi?
Yeah.
So like in one sense, it's actually quite a cool educational tool.
Yeah.
But obviously, like if you're running a market garden, the difference between a market garden and having your own like vegetable garden or allotment is there's a commercial side of things, and obviously for a market garden it does have to be commercially viable, and so part of that is not wanting to scare the customers too much with all of these weird things. So what would you say are like the gateway drugs of the perennial vegetable world that you can that market gardeners could start to grow to gradually kind of recruit people into this other world of
that's
plants?
A really funny way of putting it, but I've actually had this conversation with quite a few people about, well, a good place to start. We sort of drew up a list of about 20 top perennials that were so close to their annuals. They're not like freaky or out there and things. It's like, here's a perennial kale, here's a regular kale. Here's a perennial leek. Doesn't taste. But they're actually the ancestors of the leeks that we grow on a big scale. Here's some perennial lettuce leaf, or things that can go into a salad mix. All of those things that would just be completely recognisable and taste so similar that you wouldn't have any problems introducing them. So that's the good place to start, and also high yielding plants that are going to be reliable for that market garden. So they know they're going to be able to harvest so many kilos per year, and all of those things. So it has to be workable, and that part of the work I've been doing here at Badderford is like looking at some veg box ingredients are imported, in the Hungry Gap, and it's like, well, what could you have that's a British grown leafy green, for example, that you can harvest between January and June, that goes into veg boxes. But it's just looking at all the possibilities, and then all the planting possibilities, and maybe some perennials would help the annual crops in times of extreme heat and drought. Maybe there's a way of planting that would offer shade,
especially if you're like salads and stuff.
Yeah, there's all, like, you have to have a wild imagination about it, really.
Well, yeah, you have to have a wild imagination to adapt and to kind of adapt to the changing like pressures and conditions. I think one of the things that stood out to me that made me go, what? When you showed me about, could you just tell me quickly again what that onion was?
Oh, the everlasting onion.
Yeah, and kind of how that works, because I think that is maybe one thing that is very suitable for a market garden to consider to start putting into vegetables. It's like a spring onion. Yeah,
the everlasting onion. It's actually, I mean, it's one of my favourites out of my many favourites. But it's just like such a when you introduce it to people the first time, it's like, what? And you go, yeah, you take this one onion.
That was me. Like, that was me 10 minutes ago.
You plant it, and then you just wait, probably 6 to 8 months or something like that, for it to start to split up from the base, so it'll bulk out into a bunch of onions. And it's a really, really old-fashioned cottage garden plant. These are plants that you would have found, hundreds of years ago at the bottom of. This is what we have to kind of look at again, like what was grown a long time ago. And it's not that they're new plants; they're really old plants that just completely got shelved. So the everlasting onion clumps up. You can divide. It never goes to seed, and then you could cut those as bunches of spring onions for your customers, and then from a tiny handful you can perpetuate those into a big area of everlasting onions, and they just never give up. They just keep on going.
Sounds like they're everlasting.
Yeah, it's good name.
And so I'd say like perennial brassicas, and I know like because this farm here is also connected to Riverford and the work that Guy's doing, and there's been like globe artichokes, for example, planted on a big scale.
Yeah, cardoons,
and like the perennial brassicas. I know for me as well in my garden that they are very productive, and they're also quite easy to propagate from like stem or basal cuttings, just so I can continue to grow them. But what would you say for something that's maybe a little bit more different is the tuber side?
Yeah.
Like I feel like market gardens have I think perennial tubers are hugely exciting, and a lot of them cover a part of the year that there isn't actually much like fresh available. So are there like a couple of tubers that you think have the potential to actually become a staple crop or staple variety for people's diets here in the UK?
Yeah, I think, the one crop I'm working with, the groundnuts, I mean, that's grown commercially in Japan. You find it in the supermarkets as a high protein tuber, and I've been trying to get that more attention. Like, it's hard. Yeah. It's hard.
Well, you're getting it now. You're getting it now.
But it's got. They're doing research at the University of Aberdeen on it, because it's like 18% protein per tuber. The foliage is really high in protein and nutrients.
You can eat the foliage.
It's all edible, but they're looking at the foliage more as a potential fodder crop
for
animals.
Oh, cool! Yeah.
But it could actually be processed into other products.
Well, it's very exciting, isn't it?
But the tubers, they need, because they're a bit rampant, they kind of need. You have to be careful where you plant them, but. I've been trying for years to find photographs of how they do it in Japan commercially, but they must just grow them in vast areas. But it's like got such potential, but it's trying to find a way where you could get that harvest, enough of a harvest, and that you can basically leave some behind each year for them to grow on. They're definitely worth looking at, and also. I know oca's been grown on a large scale in this country, and things like mashua and like skirret roots, like the perennial root vegetable. There's loads and loads of improvement going on to try and make the roots larger and easier to prepare and things.
Because if I remember correctly, I think I think it was okra. It came to the UK around the same time as the potato, but they decided to essentially breed the potato more as a crop, and okra got forgotten about a bit.
It hasn't been around as long as potato, but it's had an interesting history in this country. I think it got looked at seriously and then shelved again, and then recently with the Guild of Okra Breeders and things had
That's niche.
Yeah.
Talk about niche.
But it's another one that's got potential, because you need diversity in all crops. So diversity in tuber crops is also really important.
Perfect. So if any of you are watching and you are like a market gardener or wanting to do certain things and produce perennial foods, how can you, do you offer consultations or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, I have lots of conversations, and also at some of the big conferences, like the Oxford Real Farming Conference and some of the organic growers conferences and things. That's the place where you can put a sort of hive mind together, because I can go, oh, you can do this, that, and the other, but it has to be practical as well. So some of the things I might suggest, on the ground, you have to go, well, it has to work, in a way that we can harvest, easily and things like that. And I think the reason why perennial plants haven't been grown on a massive scale is because a lot of them, they haven't grown alongside the machinery that's been designed with the annual production. That's like the plants are adapted to the machines are adapted to the plants, whereas with the perennials, they are pretty much unchanged for centuries, or even they're exactly the same as they were as almost prehistoric.
And maybe that's actually a benefit that best serves small scale market gardeners, because they can produce these flavours and these crops that commercially on like field scale or tract scale aren't actually viable, which actually gives a point of differentiation for market gardeners to
who still got a hand, are doing a lot of things by hand. And I mean, maybe that is it. That's the answer. It's that not everything can be done by machine, and then like a diverse hand harvesting of diverse species is the way forward.
I'd say probably a good metaphor. It's like the difference of going to a fast food restaurant and some proper homegrown, cooked food. It's good. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.